there's been this sort of plethora of topics around is bulking dead, is a gaining phase truly necessary? Like, do we need to gain a heap of weight, etc.? And I think there's arguments from both sides, and I think there's also arguments based on what does the research actually show, which there is probably less research in that space at the moment from what I've seen. But then there's also the coaching side of things as well, and what people have seen in their athletes, and I think also comparing different demographics and different populations as well. Like potentially someone who is very young and they want to, and someone who's enthusiastically pursuing bodybuilding to the highest degree might be slightly different compared to someone else in a different circumstance per se, especially if their goals or preferences differ around body fat accrual and those sorts of things as well, and maybe whether their strength goals differ as well. And this kind of relates to a couple of questions we got asked specifically today, like for example, does the off season get shorter and more focused on maintenance than a bulk the more advanced you get as a lifter or as an athlete? So this would apply to a bodybuilder, but also literally anyone else who's undertaking a phase that's focused on muscle or wants to enthusiastically or proactively gain muscle. So I think some more recent research that was done by Eric Helms in 2023 was comparing like maintenance to a 5% surplus to a 15% surplus. And that was for 8 weeks. So a fairly obviously small amount of time in the context of muscle building. But essentially what they found, to simplify it quite considerably, was the larger surplus, or the surpluses essentially led to more fat gain without augmenting 1RM strength or muscle thickness. So, that's obviously fairly definitive evidence just through that one study alone that the larger the surplus, the more body fat that was accrued without impacting muscle gain. And I do want to tie that into some more sort of theoretical considerations from us, and also what we've seen through athletes as well and through clients. So I would say that, and this actually relates to a post that you did recently, Damien, that training performance is the most important aspect for muscle gain. Like, we can say that quite confidently. And how does nutrition impact training performance and strength and execution in the gym? It mainly comes down to fueling. So I would say the strategy around fueling and your nutrition around sort of the peri-workout window and your overarching energy balance is the most important part for muscle gain. And I think what a surplus does for that is it puts you into a more consistent, favorable environment for that. But in my opinion, it doesn't mean that a maintenance phase or a phase in which you're not proactively always in a surplus or always seeing movement on the scale isn't favorable for muscle gain either. We may not be in a position where we can definitively say, okay, one is in a black and white sense better or worse than the other. But I think that's at least my interpretation of it so far. But keen to hear some of your thoughts. Like, Lauren, what are your initial thoughts on this sort of topic?
Yeah, so I think the off season doesn't necessarily get shorter. I would say it's usually becomes a little bit more controlled and precise. Like, the main reason is that muscle gain slows down a lot as training age increases. Like, we know that beginners might gain 0.5 to 1 kilogram of muscle per month. Intermediate might be 0.3 to 0.5 per month. Advanced might be 0.1 to 0.25 per month, or sometimes even slower than that. So really, because of that very large calorie surpluses really do stop being productive. Like, the body simply can't convert those extra calories into muscle any faster. So a larger surplus, unfortunately, from what I've seen, really just tends to increase fat gain rather than muscle gain. But I think where it can be psychologically beneficial for people to say being in a 100 to a 200 calorie surplus, from what I've seen with clients as well, is that it can be a greater sense of control. And what I mean by that is, like, it feels more precise and intentional rather than like I'm just eating a lot and hoping for the best. So I find that people feel like they're working towards muscle building, away by having that small surplus. But of course, rather than having that 300 to 500, which we know now is just a larger, percentage of that's going to contribute to fat gain. So I think if people are aiming for a more lower controlled surplus of 1 to 200, there might be a slight lower fear as well of overshooting. So maybe people are less worried about going too far, and needing to aggressively cut later. So I find that psychologically clients kind of think of it like that. Another point I can think of is it could potentially reduce like the all or nothing thinking as well. Like large bulks can sometimes trigger the mindset of I've gained all these fat, so it doesn't matter anymore. And whereas small surpluses can sometimes keep behavior a little bit more consistent. So yes, that's the sort of my general view of the psychology around having small surpluses. But yeah, we know that as your training age just gets older and older, muscle, just the rate of gain is slower and slower. So yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I think the psychological interplay and socio-cultural interplay is important, because some people, I think the argument of is bulking dead almost sort of negates people's personal preferences. Like, what if someone does just want to get bigger, like, and they want to accrue body fat, or they just want to like fill out a t-shirt and they're happy to do it with both body fat and muscle. So I think obviously taking into account personal preference, and of course you may have the opposite end of the spectrum, which I would say is maybe most people, or at least at the very least 50%, where they want to gain muscle and be leaner at the same time. So essentially recomping, or like I think back in like even a few years ago, you would ask someone and like they would say, okay, the cost of doing business for gaining muscle is you are going to accrue some body fat. And I would say that's, yes, like the cost of doing business of a surplus, but you can totally gain muscle at maintenance, which wouldn't involve body fat gain. And I think just the concept of being in a surplus is, as I alluded to before, it does kind of act as an insurance policy, where it puts you into that environment where you're very confident that you're optimized for gaining muscle. And if someone is at maintenance, it does just mean more attention to detail around fueling, around ensuring that your weight isn't coming down, because we know that definitely your weight coming down and being in a deficit is certainly not favorable for muscle gain. And you need to be in a position to be performing at your best. Like, what are some thoughts that you have, Damien?
Yeah, it really does come down to performance, like you said. It is, those little things around, ensuring that training is the driving factor for muscle gain, because it is definitely a driving factor. Like, more food doesn't equal more muscle. And I really like a really well known trainer and bodybuilder out there, Steve Hall. He says that food is the fuel, where training is definitely the spark for muscle gain. I think that's really sums it up in terms of training being at the forefront for muscle gain, regardless of whether it's a maintenance or being in a surplus. And I guess where people sometimes become a little bit confused around, well, if I'm not seeing the scale move up, does that mean that I'm not gaining muscle? But there are so many other different avenues or paths we can look at that is going to give us a good indication if we are building muscle. It is around training performance. Like, are we aiming for progressive overload? Like, are our lifts moving up in the gym over a certain amount of time? Like, we can look at body measurements around circumference. You could potentially look at, if you wanted to go down the route of looking at scans, like you could look at something like a DEXA scan over time. Like, that could be another thing to look at. I think overall, and probably the biggest one is around like progress photos. Like, are you just looking different from month to month, or how often you take those? Like, they're probably, and even at times, I think we could agree, like in different stages of training, like those sorts of metrics are probably even more important than just looking at a number on the scale or body weight in general. So yeah, training is very much at the forefront of gaining muscle because of those reasons.
Yeah, I think mentioning sort of assessing progress is super important, because often people will look at the scale for that sort of check mark that they're on the right track. And I think a lot of it, there's also considerations around where someone is at in their training career, as we talked about, and what their body composition is like too. Like, I think the leaner someone is, probably, again, the more attention to detail will be required for them to be well fueled and to have consistent training performance. And there probably will be a cutoff point at where, okay, it's no longer as productive as it could be if for example, like, let's say a male is hovering around 8% body fat year round. Like, it's not going to be maybe as productive from an endocrine standpoint, which will directly influence sort of training performance and recovery. I think also with the surplus component as well, and the scale weight, if someone is earlier in their training career, and they can literally be like, the scale weight can probably be coming up, and their body fat still staying the same or even decreasing, just with the rate of muscle gain or lean body mass that they're accruing as well. Whereas someone who is potentially later in their training career, like if they've been training for 10 years productively, chances are if the scale weight is going up at a certain pace or beyond a certain pace, then there's probably a high chance that it's going to be body fat at that point. And I did want to bring it back to the Eric Helms study, because like I just wanted to mention for completeness that the biceps brachii, they did measure a number of sites, so like the biceps brachii, the triceps brachii, quadriceps, and the biceps was the one muscle group where there was a little bit more of a dose response relationship between surplus and muscle thickness. But just wanted to mention that point quickly, which is interesting. But I'm personally looking forward to more research in this area around different populations or different surplus sizes over a longer time frame as well, which hopefully shouldn't be too hard, considering that it's fairly common for people to be in some of those camps, but obviously a bit harder to quantify and control certain variables in research like that. But I think maybe some practical considerations for individuals who are considering whether they should be in a surplus or whether they should be at maintenance, or is bulking really necessary? Like one, maybe where are you at in your training career? Are you early on? Are you mid-stage? Are you late stage? What are you trying to get out of training as well? Like, are you trying to be as big as possible? Are you trying to gain muscle and also try and have a leaner composition at the same time? What is your proclivity with nutrition and food as well? Like, are you someone who likes to eat a lot? Are you someone who could be happy eating? Like, you don't really get too motivated by food. You don't have too much food noise. If so, then you can probably be closer to maintenance more comfortably than someone else. So I think it's just about considering all those different factors as well. I think once maybe strength directly gets factored into the equation, then it's a slightly different conversation about how body mass or body weight influences strength. But I think this is more so a conversation about muscle gain.